Riding down from Jacob Lake and our trip on the North Stream, we stopped to Colorado City on the border between Arizona and Utah, and we found here a nice couple hosting us through the warm shower, Sherry and Brian.
Entering the town, we saw a lot of huge houses with a very big fence, ladies wearing long prairie dresses and pastime hairstyles. And Sherry and Brian told us that we were in Fundamental Polygamist Mormon community.
Sherry and Brian are evangelical missionary, and they do an amazing work, charity work, mainly with a food bank to help here the community.
Being very curious to learn more about their work, their charity work, and the life of the Mormons community, we decided to go further and to make a little film about it and to share with you.
Brian has just accepted to answer to some questions.
So let's go. So could you give us a general explanation about who are the Mormons and what kind of Mormons live here in this community?
Okay, so back in the 1830s, Joseph Smith started his own religion. He called it the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It picked up the nickname the Mormons because of the Book of Mormon, which he claimed to have received on gold plates that he received from an angel of the Lord. And one of the earliest practices of the Mormon faith was polygamy. Joseph Smith taught that God was once a man who became a god, and that you and I can progress to becoming gods ourselves, but part of that process was entering into the practice of polygamy, because he taught that God was a polygamist. And in order to progress to godhood, you had to have at least 3 plural wives. Joseph Smith himself had about 40 wives. Brigham Young, his successor, who brought the Mormons from Illinois out to settle the West, Brigham Young had probably about 53 wives. In 1890, the Mormon Church banned the practice of polygamy with the signing of the Manifesto, but there were people who believed that polygamy was one of the tenets of the faith that you couldn't just dispose of, because we were told it was the only way that we could progress to godhood, and that made it indisposable. So they broke away from the mainstream Mormon Church and started the Fundamentalist Mormon movement. Mm-hmm. And my family broke away from the mainstream Mormon Church when that happened. My family history goes back to the days of Joseph Smith in the Mormon faith. So polygamy has been in my family all the way down to me. My father had 4 wives and 31 children, and I was his 28th child. And I grew up in this community of polygamists until I became a teenager when I joined the military to get away. And in the process of that, became a born-again Christian and then a Baptist minister. And now my wife and I live here in the community as evangelical Christian missionaries, and we operate a food bank where we're trying to help feed the people in need here in this community. Okay. I probably answered a lot more questions than the first one there, but I'm trying to be brief for your video here.
Yes.
Yeah. So one detail regarding the proportion of women and men. If it's at least 2-3 women for one man, it means that at some point there is a lack of women or too many men. So what's happened for those boys?
Yeah, that's one of the difficult things about polygamy. Polygamy creates an unsustainable society. Throughout the world, the birth rate is 49% male and 51% female. So there's only a 1% difference in us being able to say the birth rate is 50-50. Now, if a man has to have 3 wives, that means he has 2 extra wives. Well, that means 2 young men have to go without a wife in order for things to balance out. So, excuse me, that's just to begin with. The elite leaders in the community aren't content with just 3 wives. There are many who have many more wives than that. Winston Blackmore, who runs a polygamist group up in Canada, he's got 25 wives. Well, that means 24 young men had to be driven from the community in order for him to have that many wives.
And how does it happen? What's happened for those boys?
Well, these boys are told that they're not worthy. They're sent away to repent. They're told they have no value to God, no value to the community, no value to their families. They're sent away into an outside world that they've been told is full of demons and evil spirits just waiting to destroy them as soon as they're outside of the priesthood protection of their religion. And many of them, because they have such low self-esteem and low self-worth, turn to alcohol and drugs as a way of numbing out and not feeling or experiencing the pain of what they've been through. And so there's a high rate of alcoholism, drug abuse, and suicide among these boys who are driven from the community. For the women, they might be married off at a young age, 15, 16, 17 years old, because they try and marry them off before they turn 18, because once they're 18, they're emancipated. They're no longer under their parents' authority. They don't have to do what their parents say. And so because these are arranged marriages, they usually try and get a girl married off before she turns 18. So a 15, 16, 17-year-old girl might get married to a man who's 85, old enough to be her grandfather, and he might already have a dozen wives. And this becomes a very lonely existence. There's a lot of competition with the women for resources in the family for their children, and there's often favoritism shown by the men. You know, if they have a favorite wife, that wife's children might get more resources than the rest of the children, and resources can become a way of disciplining a wife. You know, if she's not being submissive enough. But it's a very difficult life for many of these women, and a lonely life. If you can imagine trying to share your husband with 13 other women, you know, when do you have time alone to yourself with your husband? Rarely. So it can be a very lonely existence. These large families, what they end up doing is they end up creating a system that's also impoverished. It's very hard to support such a large family. My father had 31 children. Of his 4 wives, 3 of them worked along with my father, and one of his wives stayed home, and with the help of the older children, she took care of all 31 of us. And so can you imagine just for a moment how stressful her day was, taking care of 31 kids and managing a house that big? And then even though we had 4 people, 4 adults who were earning an income, it was still very difficult for us as I grew up to make ends meet. I only had 1 pair of brand new shoes my entire childhood. And it was my first day of school. And 45 years later, I can still see those shoes in my head. They were very special to me because I'd never had brand new shoes before. This is the type of poverty that we're dealing with here. Here in the community, we have a 75% unemployment rate and a 90% poverty rate. And so the food bank, the food distribution that we do here is vital in helping them climb out of this impoverished state that they find themselves in. Part of the problem is how remote of an area that we're in. It's really hard to find jobs out here. So we're trying to help promote local businesses, which when those local businesses begin to grow, they create local jobs, which lowers the unemployment rate and also lowers the poverty rate. So we're trying to help businesses be successful here. We're trying to help meet people's basic needs. We're trying to help people become homeowners, because home ownership is one of the steps in prosperity. And so we're helping people repair their credit and get it into homes and things like that. These are some of the social helps programs besides the food distribution that we do to help with the poverty here.
So you come back into your hometown as an evangelical missionary. What does it mean? Is it a matter to convert people from one religion to another?
Well, I'm a Christian minister, and my purpose here is to one day have a evangelical Christian church that's planted here that teaches from the Bible and helps people to understand that the oppression that they grew up with in the Fundamentalist Mormon movement, that wasn't God who oppressed them or God who abused them. That was a man using the name of God to religiously manipulate and control them and exercise control over their lives. Their prophet was clearly addicted to power, addicted to sexual conquest with how many wives he had. He had 87 wives. And he was addicted to the money, the greed. What I want people to learn is that it's okay to have a relationship with God, and it's safe to have a relationship with God. And there's protections that God gives us in the gospel that protect us from evil, tyrannical men like the prophet they had served for so long. Jesus said, if the Son of Man sets you free, then you're free indeed. Well, they don't know what freedom looks like yet. And there's a lot of change happening here in this community because their prophet is now imprisoned for raping a 12-year-old and a 13-year-old girl that he had married spiritually. So he's serving 2 life sentences in a prison in Texas. Well, that's left the community essentially leaderless. And so things are fragmenting, things are starting to fall apart, but as things are falling apart, change is coming. And that's one of the reasons why we're really glad that we're here at this point in time is we can help the community recover economically, spiritually, socially. There's a lot of mental and emotional illnesses or needs here in the community. The same emotional and mental disorders that you'll find in sex trafficking, you're going to find here in this community. So there's a great need for counseling services and things like that to help the community here recover. And that's why we're here. If in the process of that, people come to faith in Jesus and decide that they want to be a Christian, that's awesome. We'll have church services here for them and that. Our main goal here is to not try and cram religion down anybody's throat. We don't want to bring anything to anybody that they don't want to be a part of or anything like that. We want to make that available to them if that's something they want in their lives. But our main goal here is to simply come here and show them the love of God through us by meeting their needs and helping them rebuild the community.
And material help like food bank is absolutely open to everybody.
Yes, it doesn't matter what you think, what you feel, what you believe. Heck, we don't even care if you like us or not. If you come to us and you say you're hungry, we're going to feed you. And if I've run out of food in my warehouse, well, then I'll bring you back to my house for dinner, because there's no reason for anyone in this community to go hungry. And that's one of the things we've had some difficulty in explaining to the community. They think that we're doing this for some other reason, but no. Or that we're discriminating We're not feeding certain groups of people. You have to come to my church to get my food and stuff like. No, we're not like that. We are. The food that we get comes from the government, so we can't discriminate. We have to treat everybody the same. Otherwise, we would be in violation of the law. And so we get our food from the government, but the building that we use to distribute the food out of, the 10,000 square foot warehouse that we have, there's a mortgage that has to be paid on that. There's the electricity and the water and the sewage, utilities, the maintenance and upkeep. It costs us about $3,000 a month to do this. We do get some support from local churches, and we do get some support from individuals, but we don't get any support from the government other than the food they send to us. So we do have financial need for donors, people who would like to help us in making this available to the community. And so far, a lot of the money to do this comes out of my pocket or out of my father-in-law's pocket to help make this happen and bring the food to the people here. And our personal finances are really starting to suffer from the burden that's been put on us in doing this. So we could really use some financial help. If your people would like to contribute to what we're doing, they can simply go to shortcreekfamilyservices.org, and there's a button there that they can make a donation to. Or they can go to shortcreekfellowship.org, and they can go to the contact section there, send me an email, and we can help them get connected on how they can help us with what we're doing here if they're so interested.
We'll put all the links in the description of the video.
Okay, awesome.
Thank you very much for answering to our questions.
Thank you so much, Brian.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure.
Well, welcome to our food bank. We have our food bank here in Colorado City twice a month. The food comes up from Phoenix, Arizona, and we feed the community here. So I'll take you through what our food bank looks like. People walk in the door when they arrive, and they meet at our reception table, and we give them a little snack. Today we have little Fiber One bars and a little bottle of water, and they take a number, and then they have a seat here. And when their number is called, and they come up and they sign in. And we'll take you through the food bank. Come join us. So when you come in, we have shopping carts, and we have a host or hostess that meets with you with the shopping cart. So this is Diana. Hi! So come on. So this is some more of our volunteers. And this is some of the products we have, and this is ground turkey.
One per family.
And then we have beverages on this table.
Okay. So one for each person.
And then we have some peanut butter, some vegetables, and fruit, and Sveta. The strawberries today. And then we have tomatoes. So we have the small little tomatoes, and then we have these big tomatoes here. And today we also have some organic greens that we give. And then we have lots of bread that we give out. This kind of bread is the most popular that people like here. The organic wheat breads usually go first out the door, and the white breads are the last thing that leaves. And then once your cart is full, we take you down the ramp here. And as you can see, they load your vehicles for you. And then we see you again.
5 and 3.
5 and 3. One and
Strawberries.
How many people do you have in your family?
family of one.
Okay. Oh, pretty tomatoes.
Look at
These
strawberries.
are so good. So sweet.
So here we finish this little movie. We've been very troubled by what we found here. Young boys brought far away from the families and asked to never come back. And with so many families, Mormon's family very poor and with a lot of children and a lot of ladies pregnant.
We hope that this video was interesting for you. Of course, the topic is very large and we try to stay concise as much as possible. But if you want to know more about it, you can follow the links below this video in the description. Also, there is this book. Brian is writer, so this is his book. And if you are interested, you can look below this video in the description also for more details.
And you will find the link to, I think it's on Amazon. You can buy it, a digital version or the paper one.
Yes, I started to read it. It's very, very interesting. See you in the next video.
Bye bye.